In 2009, you said you supported a peace deal that would recognize a Palestinian state, but the day before Tuesday's election, you completely reversed that. Why?
I didn't retract any of the things that I said in my speech 6 years ago, calling for a solution in which a demilitarized Palestinian state recognizes a Jewish state. I said that the conditions for that today are not achievable.
Well, that was Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in an interview last week, clarifying comments he made about peace with the Palestinians. But days later, his mea culpa has yet to satisfy the White House. President Obama's chief of staff today went after the prime minister again, in the latest from a series of attacks from this administration. Watch.
A one-state solution would effectively end Israel's nature as a Jewish and democratic state. Unilateral annexation of the West Bank territories would be both wrong and illegal. The United States would never support it, and it's unlikely that Israel's other friends would either. It would only contribute to Israel's further isolation.
Bret Stephens is the Wall Street Journal foreign affairs columnist and former editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post. So basically what McDonough was saying was Netanyahu's bad, and wrong on his policy there. And he was saying it in a controversial forum.
Right. I mean, to a group that takes a very left-wing view of the Israeli situation.
So President Obama dispatches his chief of staff to go to this group that he knows doesn't like Mr. Netanyahu.
Well, that's exactly right. And what's interesting here is the way in which the administration wants this crisis to continue. I mean, the Israelis obviously are doing everything they can to try to smooth things over with an administration that's very angry for a variety of reasons. They want to manufacture a crisis. They want this statement from the prime minister, which actually, if you read it carefully, says exactly what the prime minister said. It said a solution is not available today.
We can't reach a two-state solution because the Palestinian leadership has aligned itself with a terrorist group that wants to destroy Israel. So it's tough to have a negotiation.
Well, that's precisely right, because the Hamas and Fatah reached an agreement about a year ago, which makes it very difficult for Israel to allow a state to come into being where a major party is sworn to Israel's existence.
I'll tell you why the White House apparently doesn't accept that. They don't accept that Israel can't negotiate with Palestine under those circumstances because we are negotiating with Iran when even just this weekend, the Ayatollah said when people were chanting death to America, hell yeah! I mean, he said it a little differently, but he said, yes, I agree. And yet we're negotiating with him. He doesn't understand why you can't negotiate with people who want to destroy you.
Maybe the difference is that we're 7,000 miles away from Iran here in New York City, but the Israelis are just a few miles away from their enemies in Jerusalem or on the border with Syria or I mean.
So what's this about? I mean, obviously the White House can choose which message of Mr. Netanyahu's they want to accept. And they're very focused on what he has said days before the election, saying words matter, pre-election rhetoric matters, and they've chosen to accept that message as opposed to the one he made after he got reelected.
I mean, it's a kind of extraordinary statement. Remember, in 2008, when he was running for president, Obama went before AIPAC and said that Jerusalem has to remain the undivided capital of Israel. Now, then he walked that statement back within 24 hours. You don't have Israelis saying, well, Mr. President, words matter, election rhetoric matters. So this is clearly an attempt by the administration in a fit of pique, angry that Netanyahu won re-election despite efforts by the administration to defeat him, to isolate an allied government for the next 22 months. I think that's not only bad politics, it's really bad policy. We should not have a foreign policy that is aimed at isolating and humiliating the few allies we have left. Remember, just this weekend, we had the complete collapse of the American position in Yemen. We are finding our position, our strategy in the Middle East is falling apart one country after the next. Do we really need to make enemies gratuitously of our friends? I don't think so.
Do you think the Ayatollah swears? I think I took a little liberty there with his...
He does, as a matter of fact.
Okay, good to know. Bret, great to see you.